So good afternoon and welcome to the Middle East Forum's webinar and podcast series featuring talks from the Middle East Forum's project. I am Alex Selsky of Israel Victory Project and I will be moderating this discussion today. By the way, sorry for my uniform, but I'm during a reserve service from the very morning of October 7th. The format will be a 15-minute lecture followed by 15 minutes of Q&A from myself and the audience. Should you wish to ask a question, please use the Q&A box located at the bottom of your screen to type your question. And now I am pleased to introduce our guest today, Mr. Ichay. He's the director of the Jerusalem Center for Applied Research, and he served in the Israeli government from 1995 until 2019, including in the Prime Minister's office, and he was a Director General of the Jerusalem Ministry and Ambassador to Kazakhstan. Mr. Ichay holds a BA and MAA from Bar Ilan University, and our topic today is former Soviet Central Asia and the Palestinian-Israel conflict. So, Ron, please, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody, or something between good morning and good afternoon for many of you, I guess. Well, the background concerning the Middle Asia, Central Asia countries is that they are, for us as Israelis, but I think it's relevant for for the rest of the world. They are what we call a white paper, tabula rasa, something that is nothing is written there, and we can write there whatever we think necessary in terms of mainly international relations. They inherited I would say the Soviet legacy towards the world on one hand, but on the other hand, they had nothing to do with it in particular. And most of the senior diplomats and most of the foreign ministers, in the Soviet Union were Russian. You can mention Eduard Shevardnadze, that was foreign minister towards the end of the Soviet Union, and in Kazakh terms, Kassym-Jomart Tokayev, who is today the president of Kazakhstan, was a senior diplomat, but not too high level. So when Kazakhstan and other Central Asian countries became independent, they actually were, I would say, free to observe and to decide how they react or how they treat, how they relate to each and every country, each and every region. And it was, of course, very, very comfortable for us as Israelis, because we did not enjoy very good relations with the Soviet Union and the whole Eastern Bloc. And suddenly we had dozens of countries. If I also include other East European countries, newly created countries, not dozens, but between 12 and 20 countries, depend how and when you count. And we were able to deal with them on a fairly new basis. And we had also an advantage that about 1 million Israelis were Russian speaking, including many in senior or central positions, former central positions in the Soviet republics. So it was quite new to us, because we were used to be attacked and condemned by these countries, by this area, and suddenly we had a new fresh ground to try and work on. I can give you an example. When the second Lebanon war ended on August 14th, 2006. 2 weeks later, only 2 weeks later, I arrived in Kazakhstan and met in a couple of days. I met with the first with Tokayev, who was foreign minister, to present the copy of my credentials. The first sentence he said to me, and it was only 2 weeks after a long war, not easy war, and I would say quite controversial, mainly towards the end. The first thing he said to me, the first sentence he said to me is, between both our countries, there are no contradictions. Now, this was not true, of course, but because there are until today contradictions, not severe ones, but there are. But the fact that he decided, that he chose this sentence as the first sentence to express to the new ambassador meant a lot. And also, a couple of hours later, this afternoon, I met with that afternoon I met with President Nazarbayev, and he said the same. And it meant, and I know from my predecessor, I knew that during the more than a month of war, if you lived in Kazakhstan and didn't listen to news, didn't absorb news from outside, you didn't know that there was war in the Middle East. Meaning that for Kazakhstan, there are other more important issues than the Israeli-Arab conflict in the Middle East, towards Israel and towards the Arabs. And this reflects, or reflected at least at the time, some other Central Asian countries. This is very important, and this is the basis that until today, relatively good relations between Israel and Central Asian countries, some better, some less, but this is the base on which we build, so to speak, until today, our work, our activities in Central Asia. Now, I divide, when I speak about the Israel and Central Asian countries concerning or in the frame of the Middle East conflict, I divide it to two different fields. There is the formal field and there is the practical field on the ground. On the formal field, they vote against us in any international forum they can. I mean, whenever it's necessary, and it is necessary in their view, because that's what the Arab world demands. They vote against us. They condemn us when they think, well, when they find it needed, and they find it needed much more frequently than we do, of course. And they don't support any of our, I would say, of our positions with regards to the now it's not relevant, but what used to be the negotiations between Israelis and Palestinians concerning the final solution. So officially, formally, they are not with us at all. But on the ground, as I said, they most of the time, in many occasions, I would say, they ignore almost completely. When I talk about Central Asian countries, I take Kazakhstan, which I know better, as the main example. And what relates to Kazakhstan relates also to other Central Asian countries in various degrees, because Tajikistan is not Uzbekistan, and both of them are not Kyrgyzstan, and Kyrgyzstan is not Kazakhstan. I think Kazakhstan today, and I take Azerbaijan aside, it's not a Central Asian country, it's a Caucasian country, even though there are some similar aspects in Israel's relations towards Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan, not the same. But Kazakhstan, I would say, from what I knew and from what I know until today, even if it is a little different, it's been 15 years since I left there, but I'm in touch. Kazakhstan, I would say, is the most advanced Central Asian country in her relations with Israel, despite the need or the urge of former President Nazarbayev to be some kind of mediator. He saw himself and he saw his country as someone who must have an international status, not only local leader or national leader. So, and he tried. I can say now that he did not suggest it directly, but there was a suggestion that came to me indirectly. And I cannot confirm for sure. I have no evidence that it came from him initially, but undoubtedly it came from people around him. I don't know if he knew about it. To maybe mediate or be involved or host some kind of Palestinian-Israelis forums or negotiations. And I thought it was not a good idea, not because I do not trust him, but because I know that if you put your hand in the Israeli-Palestinian negotiation, you end up fighting with both sides, and mainly with us, because we are to blame anyway. So I did not want to spoil Israeli-Kazakhstan relations on this altar of Israeli-Palestinian negotiation. I knew that there was no point in it. But so what makes these countries, I would say even favorite of the state of Israel, is that they see themselves, and I heard it several times, they see themselves, or they saw themselves at the time, and I don't think it disappeared. They see themselves as followers in history, of followers of what happened to Israel. They told me several times, mainly Kazakhs, but not only Kazakhs, we walk now, we step now on the same route that you did some 50, 60, 70 years ago. You did well. We would like to do well as you did. Teach us, guide us. And I think this, it reflects and it shapes the quite unique Central Asian attitude towards Israel. These are Muslim countries, and they have some kind of, not affection, but some kind of relation to Arab countries and other Muslim countries. Even though Islam there is absolutely not political, it's something that is more cultural. They drink alcohol, for instance. They don't observe, they don't practice the religion. There are efforts by Iran, by Saudi Arabia to enhance, to strengthen Islam in these countries. And once again, you see two countries, Iran and Saudi Arabia, with completely different interests. They try to do as if so-called the same, promoting Islam in Kazakhstan and other countries, but from different reasons. So it doesn't really work. And it's not a main factor in Kazakh or other Central Asian. Some of them more, as I said. I take Kazakhstan as the main example. Some other countries are different, but once again, it's not as important, as strong in other Muslim countries. The Islam as a state religion does not exist not in Kazakhstan, not in Uzbekistan, and in other countries as well. In some places more, some places less important as a factor, but not the main factor. And it has influence. So I would say that I would define the uniqueness of this attitude as, on one hand, it was, as I said, it was a carte blanche. It was something new that we could write on our story, something we couldn't do with other countries when we were established 75 years ago. We couldn't, because they also already had their views towards Jews, towards Zionism, and towards the newly established Israel. It did not exist in Central Asian countries when they were established in the early 90s. It was a blank. It was a white, empty page. We could write whatever we wanted. This is on one hand. On the other hand, there is the law of the big numbers. Okay, Central Asian countries, like any other countries, has something between 15 to 20, even more sometimes, embassies in other Arab and Muslim countries, and one embassy in Israel. And on the other hand, they have 20 Arab and Muslim and even more embassies in their capitals, and one Israeli embassy. It's reflected in everything. Like you get best case scenario, you get 20 negative reports on a daily or weekly basis, negative reports towards Israel, and one positive. So it says something, and of course it means everything in international forums, and also within the headquarters of the Ministries of Foreign Affairs. So I do not ignore that. And as I said, we have the official, the formal level, and we have the practical level. And I think the practical level reflects or comes out of this white page that I described, where we wrote our own story and managed to write or to shape a unique relation with these countries. And on the other hand, we have the official, the formal level, or the formal field, on which, like the rest of the world, it's influenced by the general international arena. I think I need to stop now because my 15 minutes are over, and I would love to answer some questions. I hope I managed in a short time to describe the picture as I see it.
Thank you very much. Very short, but very interesting and very wide presentation. So I would like to ask some questions that we received from the audience. JR Pride is asking, are there still ethnic Russians in former Soviet Central Asia and are they still opposing Israel?
I think in Kazakhstan there are the largest Russian minority in Central Asian countries. When Kazakhstan was established, actually there were more Russians than Kazakhs in Kazakhstan. Now it's different, but I don't think. Well, Kazakhstan is a country without anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism does not exist there. If there is something, I would rather it will come from maybe from Russians or Ukrainians that are there, not from Kazakhs. Kazakhs, they have nothing to do with it. So yes, there is a large Russian minority in Kazakhstan. Their trouble is much more with local Kazakh government. They think they are they think they're discriminated. So and they don't have anything to do with us. Generally speaking, I can tell you that I was walking in Kazakhstan with kippah on my head, something I never dared, and it was forbidden to do by the security in the embassy in Brussels, where I served before. So this is something completely different. We felt safe in Kazakhstan.
So I will continue this question. How do you think today Kazakhstan and the whole this area are they independent from Russian influence concerning their relations to Israel?
Well, generally speaking, yes. It depends on what basis, in what regard. For instance, I think politically they are independent. They can do whatever they want because Russia. It's not that Russia doesn't care of what happens in Israel. Mainly now that Iran is involved, and of course the war in Ukraine is in the background. It's not in the background; it's the ground. But in other issues, I would say more technical issues. And it's not mainly it's not specifically against Israel. When I came to, I'll give you an example, and it will sum it up. When I came to Kazakhstan, I was informed that there was a contract between Kazakhstan and the British air industry, a huge contract of billions of dollars that was cancelled, and it was cancelled probably by the Russians. Though it has nothing to do with Russia, but it was cancelled because Russia did not agree that something that strategic will go out of hands to a foreign country like Britain. During my time in Kazakhstan, we have a blooming in our security export, I would say, to Kazakhstan, and it was flourishing for quite a time. I think it still goes on today, but I don't know. But in any event, at a certain stage, we were blocked. We were blocked probably by the Russians. We didn't know that for sure, of course, but we knew that there were two main streams in the Ministry of Defense: a pro-Russian one and a pro-Israeli one. And the pro-Israeli one was blooming until it was stopped. And I'm not that naive to think that there was, someday someone just woke up and decided to stop everything. So yes, there is an influence, but I don't think it's political. I think it's more practical.
Thank you. Another question from Stephen Orlow. What is the relationship of the states with Iran? What is the Sunni-Shia divide if exists there? For example, through Azerbaijan is Shia, the relationship with Iran is very stained and it benefits Israel. Do those states also have these aspects?
First of all the states that have shores on the Caspian Sea are involved with Iran. This is a strategic issue, and they have, I would say, to dance or to step between the rain. But it's something worth mentioning that even though they don't, and once again I'm talking about Kazakhstan, but not only about Kazakhstan, but with regards to other countries as well, they do not only they do not disconnect the relations or downgrade the relation with Israel, you can see the other way around. So it means that as much as they need Iran, I think Iran needs them more, with its own interest in the Caspian Sea. So even Iran, as a non-rationalist, I don't like this term because they are rationalists with their own rationality, not our own. But even Iran knows what's more important to her at a certain stage, at a certain point, and knows where to push the pedal and where to go a little backwards. So it exists, but it does not heavily influence the relations.
So I'll continue this issue. We all know about how Israel uses, Azerbaijan in relation to Iran. Does Israel also does that with these states, with the Central Asian states?
I'm not that familiar with the situation to try and compare. Azerbaijan is a very, very unique case. I guess you know that the Iranian leader is not Persian. You know that he's Azeri. So this is something that is, I would say, this is a family problem or family issue between Azerbaijan and Iran. I don't think other mainly Central Asian countries who are not Shi'i but Sunni, even though it has not great meaning in this regard. As I said, they're not religious, but they're Sunni secular, not Shi'i secular, I would say. It is a little bit different. I don't think they have so many mutual and contradictory interests in the Caspian Sea that once again Israel does not play a major. To our surprise, we're not used to it, to be second, but we don't play a major role in this regard in these countries.
And do you believe that today, with I think that we definitely can agree that we forecast, worse relationships with Russia, between Israel and Russia. What do you think will be or can be the development on this background of relations between Israel and the Central Asian states?
I think that this is my view, that as long as Russia does not interfere, and I don't predict for now any such interference, I don't think it will influence, because unless they have direct interest that we harm, and for the time being it's the other way around, unless one of these countries will have a direct interest that is harmed by Israel, they have no reason to change anything. On the contrary. So I think that as long as the situation goes like this, now I can, I just went through just to see that I didn't miss anything, and I saw even the comments of Tokayev, for instance, and his foreign minister after the October 7th attacks. They condemned very, very directly and very harshly the attack against Israel. And even when they tried to, and I think it was very calculated, when they tried to balance, later, like other countries, because we attacked back and we're not allowed to attack back. So even then, they were not that precise. They said that, that they repeated the two-state solution and the need and the natural rights and everything. Nothing new. What was new is that we attack very, very heavily in Gaza now, and we were not condemned as harshly as you could have expected, because I think they preserved their unique position, not in favor of Israel, but for the time being and for many years, especially not against. And this is something worth mentioning.
Do you believe that the major interests of these states that they see in Israel are economic, and if yes, in what field?
Of course, I can point a very bright difference between my work as ambassador and my embassy to my envious colleagues abroad, mainly in Western European countries, but others as well. I did not deal with the conflict. I did whatever I felt like, and it was 90% and more economic. On the other hand, my colleagues in other countries, other European countries, and Kazakhstan is partly a European country, in other Western European countries and others, dealt most of the working day with regard to the conflict. I lived in heaven in this regard. So yes, there is a huge economic interest for these countries in Israel. They try to do their best to take advantage on it and to try and make the best out of it. We felt it in Kazakhstan on a daily basis. I know it goes on until today. I know it goes on in other countries as well. And I think it's once again it's one of the solid bases of the good relations of Israel with this country, because they are very practical. They try to be they fight. They don't fight for their lives because they're 30 and more year old now, and they're more stabilized than they were. But they're still young countries, and they struggle to enhance. They struggle to promote themselves, and they know where they can do it, with whom they can do it better. They try not to lose the Arabs as well. There is a huge Arab money that can contribute and does. Yes, but they try to use them both. They don't take one on the account of the other, I would say. And yes, we work there economically quite freely.
And do you believe that they influence also our relationships with other Arab and Muslim countries for better?
Well, I didn't think about it because I never saw ties on this regard between Central Asian countries and Arab countries. I wouldn't say that. I would say that they contribute in a way because it makes a good atmosphere and it creates a good environment. But we have much more, I would say, direct and immediate interest, mutual interest with Arab countries in our neighborhood that then could be really heavily influenced by remote countries as Central Asian countries. So I would say that it contributes on a general basis, but I wouldn't say it has a direct connection. That's how I would think about it.
So what is the major benefit that Israel can benefit from with those countries?
Well, first of all, economically, we export knowledge, we export science, we export products. Second, it is something strategic in our goals as a state, as an independent state, to maintain good relations with many areas around the world. So I'm not talking about Ben-Gurion's second circle theory. It's not the case, but you can say that it's something that goes out of it. Trying to widen the circle of not of influence, because we don't seek to influence anyone, but the circle of connections, the circle of good political relations with other countries, and not to forget, we still have probably tens of thousands of Jews in Kazakhstan that we would like to take care of, and we have special relations with them, of course, and mainly economically, also politically, and in some ways, I think it eases our relations with Russia. Even though with Russia, it's once again it can help, but it does not shape. With Russia, it's something different. It can help as a background, and it's something positive, but it has nothing to do with what we have now with Russia, which is influenced by completely other issues.
But you believe that but economically, to do business with them helps to do business with Russia?
Yes, of course. Not only with Russia. One step leads to another with other countries as well. And right. Sometimes I can tell you that I was a guest when I still served there. I was a guest in a weapon, I wouldn't say festival, but something, event outside of Astana. And I think there were 12 companies, 11 or 12 foreign companies presenting their products, out of which 7 or 8 were Israelis. Now it was a regional event, regional affair, and many others saw it, and it was in Kazakhstan, and we demonstrated what we know, what we knew, what we still know, I hope, to do. And of course, it helped us. It helps us, marketing our products. So not only in Russian terms, I think if Russians were certainly there, and if they were there, they were not happy with what we had to suggest. But other countries bought it. So yes, we gained from it.
Ran, thank you very much for this very interesting and very informative talk. We have come to the close of our webinar. Thank you again and thank you all the guests for joining us today. For our viewers and listeners, please join us Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern for an update with Ashley Perry on Israel Insider webinar. Thank you all for joining us, and I hope you have a wonderful day. And Ran, thank you again. Have a good night.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Good evening, everybody.